and welcome back to the Grimm Chronicles for this week. So since the past week, so I think this is going to be for week 8, number 8 for 2022. Yeah, definitely a week, right? This is probably the week where I've read the least, and mainly due to historical world events of a very sobering nature. I'm sure you know what I'm referring to. And just watching the news and being too much on the Twitter, basically, it's just kind of it's something you fall into. Like I created a list for people who are tweeting about what's going on in Ukraine in a sort of interesting way, and then you kind of get sucked into keeping on checking that. And I was sort of thinking a little bit about the psychology of doom scrolling and how it seems to be a sort of a futile attempt at controlling the narrative. Like, I had the sense that if I keep watching the tweets, it won't be as awful as if I just let the awfulness happen, which I don't know if that makes any sense. But and I do, in a very general way, just have this feeling that everyone, I mean, a lot of people have kind of decided to, or just haven't really accepted how awful Putin is. I mean, he's been doing awful things for a very long time, and this is just indicative of that. And I'm glad to see that everyone is uniting against him, but of course it's very, very complicated, and we'll have to see what happens. But anyway, so that is my very normal human excuse for why I haven't been reading a lot of my stuff, and of course my work, my teaching. So we finished the fairy tale Undine, and it was fine. The class is a little hard to engage in all the stuff I want to engage them with, and part of it is I just think that my presence is a little too overbearing somehow. I try not to. I try and they do talk. I mean, it's not completely quiet, but it's not an easy class because of the audience being so broad and so different. You have people from all different kinds of majors, and they're usually kind of first, second year students, so they're kind of still figuring stuff out in terms of how to respond to each other and to professors. But I mean, it was fine. The discussion was fine, and then we watched the movie Little Mermaid, the Disney movie, and discuss that as one of the texts for this rubric. So Andersen's fairy tale Undine, and then Disney's Little Mermaid. And of course, what's interesting about the Disney movie is that it is kind of a team effort, and it's very commercialized. And I'm always a little bit on a different side than they are when it comes to Disney, because I checked with them, and even this younger generation is still very enamored with a lot of the Disney movies, which I psychologically understand and respect, but I do not share their love for any of these movies, and I never will. And it's for all different kinds of reasons. I think I have to admit that I'm over invested in the higher arts. You know, anything that's too commercial is just off-putting to me. I don't know, I'm trying to think, I have to think about this a little bit more. Like, is it a commercial art? I mean, I watch very kind of middlebrow television, but even there, the minute it gets into the sort of comic stuff, some of them I liked. I remember when I had an operation on my toe and I couldn't walk for 2 weeks, and we decided to go through all of the Marvel movies. Was it Marvel? All of the hero ones. And they were sort of entertaining. My favorite was the Hulk. I don't know why I like that movie. But anyway, but that's just normal. That's to be expected, that most people have a different opinion of things than I do. I accept that. Speaking of changing my mind on things, and I don't know what possessed me. I guess there is a sort of hope or a naive gullibility in me. I don't know if that's the right word. So I had downloaded all of Karl because I had the sense that he was important for Schmidt. I still don't know how important Arno Schmidt And I started reading it, and pretty soon decided I'm not going to continue because I hate this stuff. I hate formulaic, super cliche in this old-fashioned way. Like it's a tale about going through the desert with this German who has a fake kind of Muslim name, Arabic name, and then his sidekick who has this terribly sort of cliche sounding. When Germans put a foreign name into German, it turns into hachi hachi. It's just kind of silly and not enjoyable. And so I'm glad I only paid $1 for all of it, because I'm probably not going to read any of it. I think that's why I'm resisting the famous book, which is his book about this Native American Winnetou, who's an Apache apparently. It's so beloved. And I resisted, and now I know why, because it's not good. It's just terrible writing. I mean, it's not terrible writing. It's formulaic, it's cliche, it's kind of like why I don't like Disney. It's the same thing. And I kind of was deluding myself that I could get into it. It's kind of like, oh, it's adventure stories. It's like Robert Louis Stevenson, who's actually an interesting writer, comparatively speaking. But no, it's not. It's, maybe it's like the Tarzan stuff, which I haven't read. It's more pulpy. It's pulp. It's early pulp fiction. That's what it is. And so I had interesting discussions about this on Twitter with people who do research on pulpy stuff and who really just completely out loud say, like, I don't read it for its merit at all. I read it as a research object. And one person said as a kind of sort of type like fan fiction. That's what it is. It's fan fiction. It's beloved characters being put into these situations in these kind of very pat ways, and the power of fanfic is there. And I think it's sort of like the Disney reaction. It's just so powerful for a lot of people, but I almost feel like I just don't have it in me, to like it. I hate it. It's not even not like, it's hate. So anyway, no more Karl May for me. Life is too short to read things that make you angry and you just don't think much of. In terms of what I have read, I've listened a little bit more to my long fantasy novel, The Memories of Ice. I haven't shown a picture of it in a while, but I'm still kind of getting through this one. And, I'm almost at 800, and it's a little frustrating because don't ask me to tell you exactly what's going on. Creatures are fighting each other is about all I can say. But I do, because I'm listening to it mainly, I don't know the ins and outs of how they got from this place to that place, because I sort of drift in and out myself. I mean, I know enough to keep me interested, but it's kind of an interesting, it is barely reading, I admit that. It's more just kind of like listening, but I'm still sort of following along enough to keep going. It's not completely incoherent, but it's hard to summarize and tell you about. Slowly making my way. This is the one I wanted to be done with much sooner, and it is taking a lot longer than I expected, but it's because I've talked about the style, and I almost was trying to figure out a nice sentence to read to you guys, but I'm not going to do that. It's not a fast read. You kind of had to sort of ponder its style. It's great though. I do like it a lot, and hopefully I like it enough to keep going and not give up and say I'm going to read it later on. Same thing goes for poor Miss MacIntosh, which I haven't touched in a while because of busyness and preoccupation in my mind. So yeah, and at some point I'll continue with Arno Schmidt and even the master's thesis that I printed out right here. But it hasn't happened yet. And I think, so this master's thesis is a commented handbook on the story I read, Entomasis, and another story called Gadir oder Erkenne dich selbst. So Gadir or Recognize Yourself. Sounds interesting. So I'll keep this and maybe wait till I read Gadir, which is in the same collection, the first volume of that collection. So Schmidt continues. The Schmidt project is continuing for sure. And so one thing came in the mail that I'm excited about. So let me tell you at the end here about this book. which is im Keller, so in the basement, in the cellar, by this really interesting person, Jan Philipp Riemsma. So Riemsma is a name that German people of a certain generation probably remember. So I don't know which brands, but they were tobacco people. You know, they owned certain German cigarette brands. And he grew up in Hamburg, so in the north. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be doing this. Let me see if I can find his page. I'm looking for this is all about his father, who had a different name. Jan Philipp Riemsma, born 1952, and he's a wonderful person. He's very, very interesting. He's a patron of the arts. His father was too, but and in German there's this term Mäzen, which I was looking up. That's where I got patron of the arts from. But he gives a lot of money to causes and things that he values. And one of the people he did really, really value was Arno Schmidt. He's the one who gave him 350,000 Deutschmarks back in the day in 1977 so that he could live and write. And he's the founder of an institute in Hamburg who's done sociological research. He wrote his dissertation on a 18th century writer, Christoph Wieland. Wieland is sort of an interesting transitional figure on the way to the big names like Goethe. And I don't know if I've ever read, his novels tend to be very long. He's very much of the 18th century, you know, he's Samuel Richardson and all those people. But I would like to read some Wieland, but they are long. I don't know, maybe they're good. Probably better than Karl May. Wouldn't be hard. But he's done a lot of things. And so this book that I had bought is a report or his story of being kidnapped. So it's actually quite interesting in Germany. A number of very famous people, very rich people. He's one of the richest people in Germany still from being and apparently when he got inherited his big chunk of money, he immediately or at some point sold it from a cigarette company to a coffee company, a famous coffee company in Germany called Chibo. So he wanted to get out of cigarettes, you can tell. He wanted to get away from all of that. And so this is about his account of being kidnapped. Only for 33 days he was in this basement, and it's his kind of reflections on this whole awful ordeal, which kind of is sort of, I am interested in sort of true crime and the psychology behind awful crimes. And so to read someone who has kind of a reflective, scholarly take on the world, who is then kidnapped, how they get through it, and how I think it'd be fun. I was going to say fun, an interesting read. And this is a used copy that I got, and I'm just seeing. I thought I noticed the underlining, but not many. It's pretty clean. Yeah, no. These are underlinings in the text. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that'll be something I go to pretty quickly. Maybe even after the letter to me, unless something else grabs me. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a short one today. And yes, I am wearing my mermaid necklace. And yeah, hope we're all doing well. It's just so interesting how the pandemic has receded because of the other world news and the awfulness of it all, and how, yeah, but life moves on, you know, and me doom scrolling isn't really going to help anything. You know, we can give money, and there have been some interesting things on Twitter about that. So, but life goes on, and I will see you next week. Hope you're all doing well, and thank you for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.